Sego, bonjour. Re-bienvenue à cette 6e émission d'un documentaire de 12 émissions qui s'intitule Les Kanien'kehá hôtes sur leur territoire et voisins au quotidien. Aujourd'hui, on a vraiment le privilège de recevoir avec nous une personne de la communauté de Kanien'kehá qui va nous parler plus du côté spirituel, de nouvelles façons ou de leur façon de voir le monde. Alors, c'est une vision du monde qui est différente, évidemment, de celle de l'Occident. Et puis, on va en discuter longuement avec lui. Comme à l'habitude, soyez bien avisés que ça se passe en anglais. Et puis, la traduction, vous allez pouvoir la trouver lorsqu'on va diffuser sur les réseaux sociaux le lien qui va vous amener sur YouTube et le mécanisme de YouTube va pouvoir vous faire la traduction en sous-titrage. Donc, sans plus tarder, je vous présente et j'accueille Monsieur Kevin Deere de Kanien'kehá. Thank you very much for being with us today. It's an honor for us to have you on this documentary. Welcome to the show.
Happy to be here.
Great. So starting off, we're going to be covering a lot of stuff. I have a whole bunch of questions, but you know, this is a conversation, so we might be following up on stuff that you're going to be saying. So we're going to do this as it goes. But just to start off, how would you describe the Kanien'kehá worldview?
Okay, so before we get to that, just a few things I'm going to start out with. Nagade tenetsus what the husadado agwe what kuna warado. Yatsanunya zisego gaida was so when is rade. Netigo ostawa kawi. Nedo wanaduki tinistan hudza, then say you got come hajan, dego no hodi what's a chat when is rage, then yatana joduk. Onana nea gwego aska the wawa nuni nagwani then that's the warado ne. Sastansra go so yera ojage uniru na sugwa dezu sia sego gwegu ga idwes dano gwegu yogo da garida no wado skana yogo na tunwe to I just started out in my own language welcoming everyone with some of the ancient protocols about how nations meet and saying that it's great that we're all here. And the reason why we're all here is because this earth that we refer to as our mother provides all of this unconditional love from the beginning of time without fail, and only ask that in return that we have attitude of gratitude, that we be thankful every day, that we remember the future generations so that hopefully they will inherit a happy, safe, clean, beautiful, peaceful, loving home. And then we bring our minds to the great mystery, that source of life for all life, that we're still here to participate in this great gift called life. So
thank you very much for that.
Right. So to answer your question, maybe let's just go back to it again so that...
Yeah, well, basically, you know, it's on me. I should have, you know, already asked you if you could do the opening words. But yeah, how would you describe the Kanien'kehá worldview from the Kanien'kehá perspective?
So first of all, we all have to understand that we originate somewhere. So for us, it's the great mystery. Then it's the sky chief. Then it's sky woman. So they get married, and then she's pregnant. She's going to fall through the hole in the sky, follow the water, and come to this lower world. And she's already pregnant. And the whole idea why is pregnant, well, what does that mean? It means life is going to come into the world. So our whole creation story is about this idea of the perpetual regeneration of life forever. And there's a whole epic story to that. But then she has a daughter because it's two women that lay out the foundation. Then when she reaches into motherhood, some say it was Turtle Man, some say it was the West Wind, but one arrow is straight, one is a little crooked, puts it across her stomach, and then she conceives. Then as a result of that, these two brothers, identical twin brothers, begin to argue. One is going to follow natural law and the other one is going to be contrary. So in the time of their birth, the creator, we call him Kanien'kehá, the holder of the sky, follows natural law, but his brother acts contrary. And all these two brothers go out into the world and complete everything. So Kanien'kehá, the holder of the sky, is everything that is about life promotion and that's going to bring us peace of mind. His brother is contrary. So what's he going to do? He's going to bring death. He's going to bring disease. He's going to bring sickness. He's going to bring animals that if they bite us will kill us. All this different type of stuff. But the two of them are in equilibrium, in balance. And they're doing all of this stuff. Finally, there's going to be a contest. Who's going to rule day? Who's going to rule night? And Kanien'kehá overpowers his brother. When I first heard the story, the elder speaking, I don't remember who it was, said, oh, he killed his brother. I thought it was true, but when you understand, he didn't. Because if the left-handed twin wasn't in the world, there'd be no death. There'd be no disease, there'd be no sickness, there'd be none of this stuff that causes our minds to be distressed. But we're under the auspices of these two energies. So when you understand that now, we have the responsibility to walk in balance and equilibrium as possible. Because every day we're going to be tested. Mm-hmm. Our mind is going to have all of these thoughts and they're going to take us this way, that way. But when you're grounded with these teachings, it'll keep you centered and balanced. I wish I knew that when I was a younger teenager in early 20s, because I didn't know any of this stuff. When I grew up and all of the stuff that I talk about now, I knew nothing of. You know, my mom baptized me because of that fear. If you're not baptized, well, you're going to hell. So then I went to Cattery Indian School in Kanien'kehá, and that was all about with the nuns and, you know, all of this ideology about, oh, they had to save us, and we didn't really have anything to offer. Then I came to school here at Billings. Then it was the Bering Strait theory. Well, we had to be connected to Adam and Eve. So our people had to cross that Bering Strait. And then we come from monkeys. The next thing you know, the Big Bang Theory. Then when I was 18, I was initiated into the Moose Lodge. And I would ask some of the older guys that I admire, big-time ironworkers, hey, what happens to us when you die? Now, at this time, I reject any kind of belief system. Because I said, well, I don't know what the hell to believe. I asked some of the guys, what happens to us when we die? I say, you're dead. No, all I know is Adam and Eve. Well, I said, what about this idea about God and the devil, heaven and hell? They said, that's all bullshit. When you die, you're dead, there's nothing. So that was my belief system. Until now, there's actually 4 things that are going to change my life. My grandfather, he was my anchor, my mom's dad. He dies June 22nd, 1978. I'll never forget. And at that time, I'm afraid of death because of all of this fear-based stuff that I heard from Christian upbringing. Then I saw that show, The Exorcist, and that didn't help. The Exorcist came out in 1974. I didn't see it till 1977. And then even in my own community, sometimes you hear the old people say, oh, you better not go to the cemetery because those dead people will come back and haunt you. So all of this fear. So I didn't even want to go in. I never touched, that's the first time I'm going to touch a dead body. Connect with death. And I didn't want to do that, but I had to suck it up the day of his burial. And I remember as that casket was going down, set in my mind to my grandfather. So I was nice growing, knowing you, Grandpa, and you're never going to see you again. Then I got hired as a researcher. The Confederation of Indians of Quebec under Andrew the Lille. So we have a land grievance that so-called goes back to the year 1680, when King Louis XIV of France, who never set foot in the New World, decided he was going to give us Mohawks land. Wow. And it's a 2x4. 2 leagues by 4 leagues, but like always ever, it gets shaved down and there's a third of it left. And people have always been talking about that. So I was a researcher. And with all the crap that I seen growing up as a kid, I made a promise. I remember I was 7 years old. I said, if I ever become a father, my kids will never, ever see me smoke cigarettes, touch alcohol, try pot, be violent. And not to say that I never participated in what I would say foolish behaviors, but I didn't know any better. So now my daughter's going to be coming into the world. Mm-hmm. She's conceived in February and will be born in November. And when I was told, we're having this baby, I said, my life is changing. This child will never see me do any of that because I'm not going to be one that says that's going to influence that. And then a teacher came, Tom Porter from Akwesasne, to the gymnasium where I'm a former school principal at Kanien'kehá school. And then he talked about the Thanksgiving address, the Hondagari Wadakwa. And he said, that is the key to the universe. And I thought to myself, I says, holy heck. I says, well, great. That's what I wanted to hear. That's what my soul needed at that particular point in time. So that's done by Oren Lyons. And then whenever we get together, someone will speak. And sometimes it's a ceremonial way, and to acknowledge everything in this lower world and the upper world that we give thanks. So that's what's depicted there. So we always do that, because then for us, it helps us to explain who are we, where do we come from, why are we here, what are we supposed to do, and where are we going when we leave this place and go back home. Because everything is all about this whole concept of there's no such thing as death. You talked a little bit earlier about the word ogwahunwe. Ungwe, a person, unwe, from the root word zinawe, which is forever. So I'm a forever being. As opposed to in English language, you say, well, who are you? Well, you're a man, you're an Indian. Well, what does that mean? I mean, there's all kind of ideas out there, but in my own language, it has real deep significance. You look at the earth is round, our elder brother sun is round, our grandmother moon is round. We start on the other side of the sky, we're here for a time, and we're going back home. No such thing as death. We're just on this spiritual journey, and we come here to love this walking clay, to love one another, to love the earth mother, to understand our connection to the ancestor realm, because we're all going to be one in less than 100 years, and just hopefully leave this earth in a better condition than we found it. So anyway, these are the things then that changed my whole life. And then as a result of Tom Porter talking about the white roots of peace, the great tree of peace, our story about the peacemaker, so now I started to follow those white roots of peace and began that journey of relearning my language, our ceremonies, our songs, our dances, our history, and decolonizing my mind and getting rid of all of that fear that I was forced into me as a kid. And I'm just so grateful that I was able to follow another different worldview that is all about this idea that we come from love, we are love, and we're returning to love. No hell, no sin, no devil, no eternal condemnation.
No fear.
No, so
it's amazing. I'm sorry, I just wanted to squeeze in a little question there. Do you feel like you're mentioning decolonization, and I think it's fundamental. I mean, it's very important for Indigenous people to decolonize because obviously history is there to explain why. But it's also a history that's shared by the neo-colonists, because as neo-colonists, that's what we are. Like, you know, if you study sociology, there's no other term that we can use for Quebecers and Canadians other than neo-colonists. We can call ourselves everything we want, but that's scientifically what we are, is new colonists. But as new colonists, we also need to decolonize if we want to be part of this new reality, which is living on the territory in harmony with the Indigenous people. So how important is it for non-Indigenous people, the neo-colonists, to decolonize themselves? And is the path to having conversations such as what we're having today a foundation of that?
Well, absolutely, because if you look at it, right, so the longhouse is symbolic. We always say that the eastern seaboard is the eastern door, the western seaboard, the western door, and the roof of the longhouse is the sky. So all the people that came in are guests in our home. We offered hospitality and all of that with the idea that when we made the Turo, that we would travel this river of life as brothers and sisters, as equals. Because they said, well, we want this land. Well, our ancestors said, well, we have to understand more about you. And so what else do we need to know? Oh, they said, we're coming with God and his son Jesus. Okay, tell us that story. When they got done, our people said, well, we understand there's only one Great Spirit. We shouldn't have a problem then. What we're going to do is we're going to smoke the peace pipe. You bring your ways of knowing and our way of knowing, because there's only one source of life. We shouldn't have a problem then. But our ancestors didn't know that two popes, Pope Nicholas V and Pope Alexander VI, decreed the papal bulls, which essentially told the early explorers, when they come to the New World, they're not the same belief system as us. They're subservient to us. So we can come from this place of superiority. And that whole mindset is in everything. It's in law. It's in, all the things that kind of govern society with this prevailing attitude of superiority. Mm-hmm. So let's take their reserves. Let's impoverish them. We can steal everything from them, kill them even. It doesn't matter, because God's on our side. So we have this whole sad history of what has gone on. Now, what we have to say is that global warming, climate change, and all of these things are happening. Why? Because there's this attitude of superiority again, even when it comes to the earth. Because it's not considered a woman that is alive, that has feelings, that gives us all of this love, that as long as in a capitalistic society we can make profits at the end of the day, this is okay. So let's extract, let's manufacture, let's produce, let's advertising, let's sell, let's buy. And then when we're done, what do we say? Well, let's throw it away. Well, where's away? There's no such thing. All these things now are coming back to roost, because whatever we do to the earth, we are doing to ourselves, because there's no separation. So we are killing ourselves. We don't really see it that way, but this whole system this is what it's leading us to. Mm-hmm. So the scientists are saying, well, in this time of global warming and climate change, what's the solution? They said, if we look at the indigenous wisdom that is left on the entire planet, and if we begin to take some of that knowledge to heart, then we can change the trajectory that we are on. But if we maintain the status quo, it doesn't take a scientist to see where we're headed. So all of us have to like in our condolence ceremony that we talk about, begin to see from a different perspective, hear from a different perspective, speak from a different perspective. And together, we better start doing different, because this imbalance that exists, if we maintain it, we will all be gone in a very short period of time. Yeah. And we'll have no one to blame ourselves, because we did it. We're so smart. We have all this, so much knowledge, education, do all of this stuff. Yet look at where we are. So something is not hitting the mark.
Yeah.
So we have to begin to ask ourselves, so what can I do different? I can't change anybody. I could change myself. There's things that I've started to do to say, well, what can I do to change my carbon imprint? I parked my Harley Davidson. I used to have a V8. Now I use a hybrid with a 4-cylinder. I don't do any vacations. I'm retired now. I could be traveling everywhere. But I said, no, I don't want to get on planes and do that. What if I could do stuff on Zoom and these kinds of stuff, right? Because I have to say, well, what can I start to do different? So I try to say, well, what could I do then to make an impact? When we look at our ceremonies, right? All of our ceremonies that starts at midwinter, that whole cycle of ceremonies that is there, talks about how we humble ourselves and we ask all of these elements, all these gifts that have been doing their work for our ultimate life, that they continue to do their work. But what it requires is that, that we take the time, we do these sacred songs and dances so that they will continue, so that life will go on. So we do those ceremonies, we do it for everybody. It's not just for our people. Mm-hmm. And then like when somebody acknowledges you, your birthday comes around, because you're special. Everybody's special. Yeah. It makes you feel good. Well, imagine how the earth and those elements feel when we take the time and we sing and we dance and we say that we're grateful. So it doesn't get acknowledged like between me and you, but we know that there's a connection, because all these things have a spirit, they have an energy, they have a life, and it gets, how would you say, acknowledged, and it gets this whole idea that hey, people still appreciate us, so let's continue to go on. Because it says in our teaching that if all of these ceremonies stopped, then those energies, those spirits, if you will then pull back. And then what will happen is then things will not be around. And if the three sisters, the corn, the beans, the squash, the sun, the moon, these things all of a sudden vanished, we're nothing. Mm-hmm. So it's imperative that we acknowledge all of those things and be grateful. You know, some people say grace before they eat. That's great. But we take it one step further. We don't only say grace. We sing, we dance, and we take the time to all of this stuff when our Earth Mother shows now that these are going to come to fruition. Then we gather. So just last weekend, the maple water is running. Yeah. So the ceremony, song, and dances to acknowledge and thank them because that was our maple syrup, our sugar, and then the maple trees were significant. But anyway, so it's the whole cycle of ceremonies that we go through.
So the idea of this supremacy that the both popes put in place, which is terra nullius. So if you encounter any lands with people that don't believe in the same God as the Christian God, then you can do what you want with them. It comes in direct contradiction with the original contract that we have, because we, as Canadians, we always refer to the Constitution of Canada as being the document, but this is the document. The Turo Wampum is our original, constitutional obligation to
Absolutely.
the territory and the original people. So by having this false start, if you will, a positive and honest start on the Indigenous side, saying, here, these are the two rows. You're on one row, which is your canoe, your ship, and this is our ship, and we go along on the same path, on the same water flow. We respect each other. We stay in each other's canoe. We can trade. We can exchange,
Absolutely.
but we respect other people's ways of doing things. Right. Well, right from the start with Terra Nullius, the Pope bull, it's already a non-starter. Right. They already don't respect it from the start.
And our ancestors didn't know that.
Yeah.
Because if they'd known that, would you sit down and make a treaty or an agreement with somebody that you know is not being done in goodwill?
Exactly.
Absolutely not. If I would go back in time, I would say to the early explorers, you know what? We just received word from the Pope that you were subservient to you or we're less than. So you know what? If you're not going to expect us as an equal, we're not making no treaty. So go back home, rescind the papal bulls, respect us as equal to you, then come back now and let's talk. But they didn't know that. But anyway, it was still sanctified because it was done spiritually with all of these protocols, and it's going to endure as long as the sun shines, the grass grows, and water flows. So nobody's getting out of it.
Exactly.
And we have to understand that. So as much as, people are fearful, what are you fearful of? We're all in a treaty agreement. Our ancestors said we're going to coexist. Well, you're not going to keep coming from this place of superiority. That's got to go. So, a lot of things now are happening across this land that to me, I believe are all part of spiritual intervention, because we called for the return of the peacemaker. When those two guys got killed in our sister community in May of 1990, I was at the Six Nations that time, and a group of us, some of the Condole chiefs, the clan mothers, faith keepers, we went to Kanien'kehá and we did that ceremony. And we asked that intervention. So when I look at the chronology, after those two guys got shot, as I said, on May 1st, look at all the stuff that has happened. For me, without a doubt, the indigenous spiritual resurrection is happening, because right across this land, so many things have happened. Well, we went into the 78-day standoff. A lot of people talk about the Mohawks creating this awakening, if you will, across Turtle Island, not only Kanien'kehá States, because of, with the mayor of Oka, with his idea that I'm going to expand this golf course. I don't care what you people have to say. Mayor Willett. Because we went to his office. I was one of the ones. There was three of us. We wanted to talk to him. He wouldn't see us. But we had a letter stated our position that don't do this. But anyway, again, right, the attitude of superiority. Anyway, and then Tommy Porter takes a group of Mohawks to the Mohawk Valley. Then the white buffalo was born, though, from the white buffalo calf woman. The animals now are coming in white. The horse is coming across this land to begin wiping the tears of the seventh generation and healing the Mother Earth. And I was part of that planning and all of that. That was in March of 2003. The horses did leave Vernon, British Columbia, and they arrived in Six Nations Reserve on August 27, 2004.
So we're talking about people that are taking the horses, and it's sort of like a march, but with horses.
Yeah. The horses came right across the land because we needed to call on the horsepower now. And all of this stuff was through ceremony that we did. And the ancestors were giving us, I would say, like divine messages about things that had to happen. Now, when you look at, so then the youth do a relay run and then they take that into the United Nations. And then the ones that were against UNDRIP, all of a sudden, it goes through.
Yeah.
Then the next thing you know, what happens? Harper makes the official apology about residential schools and that residential policy about how we're going to kill the Indian to save the man. Get rid of your language, your ceremony, your song, dances, all of that stuff, and follow us. We're going to take it on the garden path. Well, you know what? I was an altar boy. All that church, I knew all that stuff. And where did it take me? Didn't take me down the garden path, as much as that's the promise. Because now, as I said, with my own culture, I see that, well, hey, this is the Garden of Eden, and we have no right to destroy God's sacred creation. Doesn't matter if we call it God, creator, ancestor. As I said, there's only one source of life. So we're here. None of us own anything. The only thing you own is this walking clay that is infused with spirit. So now your spirit could express itself. So we shouldn't wait till we die and we're dead and we go back into the womb of our mother to understand that while we are alive, we are the eyes of this clay. We are the ears of this clay. We are the voice of this clay. And we should understand our relationship to this clay because we are all clay. So you want to talk about Holy Land? Hey, this is Holy Land, but do we see it? No, we think that it's only some place. All of this, and that's why I said, when you understand this teaching, it's going to transform you and you're going to get it now. You think the Creator God is all out there. It's all here. But how many people are waiting until they die and they're not seeing that, hey, every day there's a chance to sing, to dance, to be happy, and to be so grateful for this beautiful gift called life. But anyway, so all these things are happening. And then 215 kids in Kamloops, British Columbia resurrect up from the dead. Every child matters. It's orange. Why? Well, you look at a fire. When you make a fire where that red hot coal is consuming, that's ozire. In my language, when we talk about family, talk about gahwadzire. So we're talking about that sacred fire that talks about our family. But it's not just my clan, my family, our nation. Everybody has that red hot coal, that ozire burning within them. So again, it exemplifies this idea that we're all family, brothers and sisters, at the bosom of one earth mother. So when you try to understand that, how do you go to war with your neighbor? How do you kill? How do you rape? How you don't once you understand this. And that's why, these teachings need to go out into the world for people to hopefully get it, that all these misguided men that think that the solution is war. It never was in the past, it never is now, and it never will be in the future.
So would you say that the spiritual, I don't want to use the term resurrection, I'll go with the term that Gerald Alfred used in his book, is resurgency. Okay. So this return to the fundamentals of spirituality, but also the fact that ceremony was done to call this spirituality back. Do you think that this resurgency of spirituality is also at the source of the resurgency of political and social autonomy that's coming more and more to fruition in nations, at least Eastern nations, because I know that in the West it's a little more complicated.
Right.
But here, especially in the eastern part of what we call Canada, there is certainly a resurgency. Did you see that there's a link there? Or?
Absolutely. Well, it is one part, because the Confederacy, the peacemaker, deals with our government and our people, the people of the Longos. But there's so many other things, as I said, that are happening across this land. And it just hasn't happened when we did the ceremony. If you look, I think the biggest thing that was a spark was when, and I heard this by a Hopi elder, his name was Thomas Kanien'kehá, and he says, when our brothers went and ripped the nails off our grandmother, go to the moon, then things were going to start to change now, because people were going so far as losing all their connection about how we're supposed to maintain this groundedness. So with that so-called going to the moon, I mean, I still wonder about it, whether or not that really did happen or not. Mm-hmm. But because the media said the eagle has landed, so then right away that impacted on people's minds and hearts and spirit. And then the idea was that we have to be all shooken up, us first. We have to get reawakened. We have to pick up our languages, our ceremonies, our songs, our dances, and all of that. Then we got to help our brothers and sisters that are in a treaty relationship, get them to start to see different, hear different, speak different, let's do different.
Do you feel like there's, I know that you do a lot of public speaking and you're involved in the arts and culture. So you do interact a lot with non-Indigenous people. And do you feel like there's a thirst for meaning that we've lost in society in general? Excluding politicians, right. Excluding people who administer the government, who have to maintain a rigidity and cannot speak with their hearts, must speak with their mind and the law. Right. But excluding these people, citizens, absolutely. Ordinary, people like you and I.
Absolutely.
Do you feel that there's this need, this thirst, this hunger for more meaningful life?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the latest things that I just heard was nature bathing. Get naked, go into nature somewhere and just, connect with the birds, with the animals, with the water, all this different kind of, that's all stuff that we've been talking about, because we're saying that the ultimate healer is ourselves and our mind, but it is going to come from the earth, because the earth is our mother. And she's not only our mother in our creation story. When we talk about Kanien'kehá, the holder of the sky, our creator, well, he has a mother too. And you know who his mother is? It's the Mother Earth. So all this is us just reconnecting with all of this stuff. And what happens is then we get it, we get healed, we get all of this stuff. But sometimes we need the people that know those teachings to bring it to the forefront, so that now people can be inspired by it and say, okay, just from the thought or some of these ideas, take it. And then however they do, as long as we come to the realization that the earth is sacred, we're all sacred, and that we live in harmony with one another, we sing, we dance, and we just do the best that we could to make it better for the future coming. Yeah. It's so simple.
Yeah, it is. And unfortunately, we don't see that, or we're starting to see it, but it's got to take some time. We've spoken about the Turo Wampum. We've spoke about the white roots of the tree of peace, but there's the origin of that also. Right. I'd like to hear you a little bit on Kanien'kehá and how it all came. And of course, it was an inspiration for the American Constitution. So
absolutely, really, that's why I like to wear this, because this is our Constitution here. Mm-hmm. So, like what's happening across the Great Saltwater with misguided men, believing that it's okay to kill one another. That was happening in this land, according to oral tradition. Even so much so that there were acts of cannibalism. And I remember when I first heard this story, I thought to myself, holy heck, I don't know if I really want to tell this kind of story. But then when you get to understand the story, you can understand that how the mind can go through that. Because I remember when I was a school teacher, I came home from school one day in 1994 and I turned on the TV and here's a recent cannibal in my lifetime. You know what I'm talking about? It was from the state of Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I thought to myself, the heck. But these are some of the things that go on. Now, in our story, and even in our creation story, and I like what Joseph Campbell says, because if you read any or know of Joseph Campbell, all of the work that he did was on the power of mythology. And he says every nation, doesn't matter who you are on the face of this earth, has in their stories heroes and heroines that are able to do beyond the realm of human capability. And understandably so. Because if we only want to understand this experience through our five senses,
it's not enough.
No, then there's a whole element of knowledge, teachings, and understanding that we cut ourselves off. Because we're dealing with something that is beyond what the mind can totally comprehend. And he explains that eloquently, Joseph Campbell, about this. He says, because when we're here in this lower world, well, he talks about the paired opposites, and he refers to it as good and evil. I don't like to look at it as evil. I just say, well, it's a paired opposite. We need the two to understand this. But when we die, we transcend that. So now, what are you going to be in? Well, use your wildest imagination. What do you think that could be? And even still, we're not going to understand it. Because that knowledge and that wisdom is directly withheld so that we can think for ourselves. But anyway, getting back to the peacemaker. So there's a time when there's all this conflict and a woman has a dream. Now, Everton, even our creation story, has a dream. And in the dream, she's going to conceive. So what happens? She does. When she starts showing that she's pregnant, the mother says to her daughter, hey, what happened here? Who's your man? I have no man. What? That's a bad omen. That's not true what you're talking about. So what happens? When the child is born, the grandmother tries to destroy it. When she finds out she can't, because every time she thought she did the deed, she gets back into the wigwam or the lodge and here's the baby at his mother's breast.
Is it true that they tried to drown the Kanien'kehá,
well,
or is that just another?
Well, no, but the thing is how you want to try to destroy a child, right? So the Kanien'kehá says, well, you know, drowning, burying, burning.
But they never managed.
No. Well, she never managed, the grandma. But then now she comes to this place where now she's even overprotective now because of guilt. Because you can imagine, you're trying to kill somebody and then all of a sudden it doesn't work. What do you think you're going to be thinking as a human being? Because even though these stories have some, magicalness to it, there are still some aspects where as human beings, we're trying to relate and try to understand, well, what is that? And how can we learn from it? Anyway, so now what does he do? So now instead of talking to the adults, he starts talking to the kids his age, little ones, and reshaping their minds, because you know that when we get set in our ways as adults and somebody says, hey, you know what, you better reconsider what you're doing. Well, the first thing that we do, we put up our defenses and first thing we say, who the hang are you to try to tell me? You know, and then the anger starts and stuff, and next thing you know, now you're in this conflict or violence, whatever. But anyway, so he works with the young and starts this whole process of reinstituting the ceremonies and all of that. And then now he's going to leave. And when he leaves the village in a stone canoe, even that, right? Stone canoe.
Yeah.
The first person that he meets is a woman. And now she's in between this conflict, right? she's gathering all the intelligence, and who knows what she's doing, if she's, perpetrating the war, creating, telling people this, all of this stuff, right? So now he meets her, and he's going to change her name to Tsigumsaze. Anything Aze is new. Aze Suma, like our word for fresh vegetables. Aze. So now her name is Tsigumsaze, new face, because of a new mind. So now this is the whole idea of the Gatni Godio, the good mind that is coming. And then they get to where the Mohawks are. The Mohawks say, we're not listening to you. They put him to a test, climb the tree. He overcomes all of that. The next day, there's a smoke rising. They go there, and he says, come on, let's eat. Gives them deer meat and says, now we're going to start the house. So now you Mohawks, we're going to go to the Naidas. We're not going to the Onondaga right away because there's a big wizard that lives there. His name is Adadaho, and he is real fierce, and he's got so much things. A cannibal, even the story talks about his penis was so big that he carried over his shoulder. And the reason for that is because as men, if we don't curb our sex drive, if you look at all missing and murdered Indigenous women, all the stuff that goes on where men feel that, hey, I'm superior to you. I'm going to satisfy my need, whether you like it or not. So this whole idea of him having a big penis was to talk about the epitome of everything that a man needs to curb in order for the great peace. Anyway, they go to the Cayuga and the Seneca, and then now they're going to come back to his territory. And at that time, people had the ability to shapeshift. So he's gathering intelligence. Some people are changing into birds, and they're telling him, there's this great peace process now that's coming. And like everybody else, I'm going to fight till the end, man. And it doesn't matter. Now, they didn't come up to him and say, hey, you know what? You're a cannibal, you're a warlord, you rape women. Well, we're going to, with these war clubs, we're going to club you to death right now. You know what they did? They sang, and they brought unconditional love. So now when the peacemaker is going to establish that ring, that circle with those chiefs, Adodaro is in there. They didn't cut off the tip of his nose or his ear or brand him and say, you, get out of here. They said, okay, if you follow these white roots of peace to this great tree, and if you change your mind, we're going to welcome you to this fold. But you're not going to be alone anymore. In your council, there's going to be 13 others. There's 14 of you that will sit. And those other brothers are going to help to keep you in line. Now you talk about unconditional love. Well, this story demonstrates, who could do that today? We're pretty hard pressed. Some people give you a finger and you don't look at them for the rest of their days, maybe, because so many people hold that animosity, and for some reason they can't. And then, even more so, when you're dealing with all of the multi-generational hurt, pain, and trauma. So for this story to gravitate, and then now we're going to bury the weapons of war, and we're going to plant this great tree of peace. And on top, we're going to put a bald eagle. Bald eagle has a white head. Why does a bald eagle have a white head that's sitting on the top of that tree? Because it talks about the mindset that we're supposed to have. And then when you have the right mindset, what's going to happen now? Now you can follow those white roots. They call it the white roots of peace. Why? Mm-hmm. Because if you have the right mindset, you can follow those white roots and sit under shade now of this great tree. Now, where's the great tree? Well, some people will say, well, if we go to Onondaga, that's where the great tree of peace was planted and the weapons of war were buried. But you know what? The great tree of peace is here.
Yep.
After we called for the return of the peacemaker, and I always wondered about, so what was the significance of that? So I went vision, quest, and fast. Give up food, give up water, give up your gadgets, give up everything. Go sit on the bosom of your mother in a sacred manner and open yourself up to the sacred cosmic intelligence. And I asked, I said, what was the significance of when we called for return of the peacemaker? Because I thought it was going to come in something, right? Everybody's waiting for something.
That's right.
And the answer that I got was the peacemaker never left. Everybody has to open up that onion, all of that, go into the pity of your being and see that great peacemaker, which is great spirit, which is God, whatever you want to call it. So it's not only in me, it's in you. So then if we truly understand that concept, I got to love you.
Exactly.
You got to love me because we're brothers and sisters on this bosom of one mother. No more war, none of this stuff. So anyway, I got that message. So now you understand where's this great, it's here. Now, when we look at conflict, because with all my stuff that I did as a vice principal and school principal, all the workshops and all kind of stuff. So they talk about conflict. What's your conflict resolution style? Well, a lot of us, we were conditioned. Might is right. Beat the hell out of them. Beat them up. So the bully attitude, right? You come from this place of superiority. You think you're better for whatever reason. A better lacrosse player, better iron worker, more handsome than you. All this kind of stuff that we think, and we put ourselves up here and we pass all this judgment. We're not supposed to do that. We're supposed to just love everybody the way we are because we're all sacred gifts.
Exactly.
But then there's intra-conflict, intrapersonal, because I used to suffer from that at one time. I didn't really like that reflection looking back at me. I wasn't handsome enough. My legs were too skinny, all kind of stuff that I was. Plus, when I was a teenager, I had acne. I had suicide ideation, but I never told anybody. I'm not telling nobody. I'm not going to Douglas. Then interpersonal conflict. Then there was another one they call it, well, intergroup. My village against your village, my nation against your nation. And then all of this, right? But then we have to understand that, you know, just like as I said in our creation story, there's two brothers. So there's this interplay. But we have to understand that we're not going to use violence as a means to an end. We're supposed to use our words. Come to an understanding.
Yeah.
And let's make it better then. So in order to do that, we have to ask ourselves, well, how do we think? A lot of the reasons of why we think and act is predicated on some type of a belief system. And that belief system, because for me, when I read the book of Revelation, the last paragraph, you know what it says about a guy like me?
No.
It says, woe to thee who adds or changes anything in this book that is the written word of God because of the suffering that you're going to suffer in this world and the next world. And as a former Roman Catholic and all of that, I turn over that Bible and say, you know what? You got no more fear over me. I know where I'm going when I die. And if the Pope was sitting here and somebody said, who are you to talk like that? Doesn't matter. I can talk about so much stuff. You know, when my dad died, well, when we changed our lives and we started following the white roots and went to the great tree, so my dad had a heart attack Christmas 2014, just before that. So we did ceremony. I called Akwesasne and we did ceremony and all of that. My dad lasted 8 months. 4 months after it, I went to go sleep at my parents' house. And my dad said, we're having coffee. He said, you know what, son, if something happens to me again, I don't want to be resuscitated, nothing. So today we're at the Jewish general and because he had fell and he had gotten hurt. So they wanted to do some tests. So anyway, I was beside him. And the last conversation, he says, what time is this? 8 o'clock? He said, let's go. I said, let's wait for real. Come on, let's go. I said, no, Dad, listen. Anyway, finally, I just happened to look and he's going into cardiac arrest. The doctor jumped up and there was a defibrillator in the wall. He was going to give it to him. I said, nope, let him go. I said, let him go. I said, I don't have the paper here right now, but he doesn't want to be resuscitated. Let him go home. It's all right. Anyway, so we go back to my parents' home at the end of the day, that afternoon. And it was hot that August 17th, the day that he died. People were coming because I'm related to half of Kanien'kehá, just about. I said, I got to go on the front porch. So I went on the front porch, and my friend Debbie came out. She says, hey, what kind of bird is that on the line? So I look up, and it's a mourning dove. How come there's only one? I said, well, that's a sign that my mom's going to be by herself the rest of her day. So it reminds me of another story, a bird on the line. In 1999, my dad came visit me. He comes up the back steps. I open the door, give him a hug and a kiss, tell him that I love him. And this close is my clothesline. And this little fledgling robin lands on my clothesline. I said, Dad, I said, see this little bird? This little bird is a messenger. So watch this. We're going to get a message. Anyway, make coffee. We're drinking coffee. The phone rings. Tom Porter. Tom Porter says, Kevin, I need a favor. He said, you know our good friend? Mentioned his name. I said, yeah. He said, his little 3-year-old daughter died. He said, there's no way I can make it. I'm in Wisconsin. He says, can you go near Albany and go help bury the little girl? I said, absolutely. So I go and help bury the little girl. So second story, bird on the line. So as I'm sitting there and I'm thinking about all this stuff, all of a sudden I started to feel guilty. The tears started to flow. I had a lump in my throat. I didn't feel good in my stomach because I said, heck, if I didn't tell that doctor to let my dad die, he'd still be alive. I don't know what condition. And I was thinking, I said, Dad, I said, it wasn't really fair too to put that on me or that I had to execute this because I'm feeling bad. That I'm the one who said, let you die. Anyways, I closed my eyes. I said, Dad, I said, between me and you, father and son, there's no such thing as death. You're in the Great Sky World Council now. I said, if I open my eyes and you could hear me and give me some kind of sign to relieve this guilt that I'm feeling, I said, that'll be good. I said, if I open my eyes and there's nothing there, well, you know what? The life expectancy of a so-called typical Canadian, not that I'm a Canadian, I'm a Haudenosaunee, is 77. I'm 57, so in give or take 20 years, keep the seat warm because I'm going to join you in the Sky World Council. Like I open my eyes and I'm like, what the heck? Where's my phone? I got to get a picture of this because I said, if I tell people this story, they say that's not true. So now my dad's name is Freddie. Our last name is Deer. This whole story started, what kind of bird is that on the line? So now the message comes in the clouds. So here it is. Here's the letter F.
Oh, yeah.
The bird is not there any longer, but there's a bird right here. You can see the head, the neck, the body, and right here in the wing is the letter D. Freddie Deer. My dad's initials.
Special.
And then my grandpa, after he died, remember what I said when the casket was going down? And I said, Grandpa, I said, well, I don't know if I'm ever going to see you again. So he comes to me in a whole series of dreams. And in one dream, I asked him point blank, just like I'm talking to you, I said, Grandpa, I said, I don't understand. How do we communicate like this and you're supposed to be dead? He said, there's no such thing as that. So that circle wampum. He says, when we die, all of us, we're part of that great binding law. And we become ancestors. And right in the center of it is a little dot that represents the earth. And he says, we're always intervening now from the spirit to the physical, back and forth forever. So now as a former Christian boy, while I was raised, well, those are the saints. Those are the angels. But for me, it's our ancestors. Because we come from that spirit, we're returning to that spirit. Now, you want to get something that's pretty fascinating?
Yep.
So I have this hanging. If you come and visit me, this whole big painting is 4 feet wide by 5 feet high. It's coming right in my living room. This coming May is going to be 7 years now. I come in, and I can't explain this, but well, like something jumped off this canvas and hit me in the head. So now we're going to give you a deeper revelation. So now, this earth that is in the middle, don't look at it as the earth, look at it as a human egg. These ancestors that are all sitting around in a circle, don't look at it as ancestors, look at it as human sperm. So the sperm connects with the egg, and what happens? Hey, here we are, the miracle of this life. So if the ancestor realm ever stops connecting with this earth, then there's no life. And I thought, wow, that's so pretty deep and profound. I said, thank you, Grandpa. So for me, as I said, people could say, you're crazy. Doesn't matter. But because of all these deep spiritual things that I've experienced, hey, I'm ready right now. Yeah. Every day is, because there's no such thing as death. I know where I come from. I know where I am here, and I know where I'm going. And if everybody understood that, wow.
We would be in peace, because
Absolutely.
If you have a peace of mind, you have peace in your relationships.
That's right.
We're nearing the end. We got just about a minute and a half to go. I don't know between, I know I've seen you do the water drum song. I don't know if you'd like to end with that or if you have ending words. I don't know which you prefer. Well, I'll leave it to you.
Yeah, I'll just end with, there's water in here. And why is there water? Because from water comes all of the plant people, the plant nation. Then the animals eat all of that. We're part of the animals. When we come into this earth, we're given that sacred breath. And everything is held by natural law. So when we do our sacred songs and dances, we're dancing through this whole life. And, you look at your chest right now, it's expanding and contracting. Your heart muscle is expanding and contracting. That skin goes up and down. Again, it reinforces that we're all in this together, this sacred dance. So again, no war, none of this stuff, just singing, dancing, being happy to this beautiful gift called life. How better can it be than that? Everything is provided for us. All we got to do is love it, acknowledge it, take what we need, share, cooperate, and be grateful every day.
Beautiful, beautiful words. And on that, we are ending this show. I'm going to turn back to the French. J'aimerais remercier profondément notre invité, Monsieur Deer, de nous avoir présenté le côté plus spirituel de la culture des Kanien'kehá, nos voisins au quotidien. Et puis, ça a été un moment extraordinaire. Et puis, restez avec nous parce que les prochaines émissions, on continue à avoir des invités de Kanien'kehá pour connaître davantage les hôtes de ce territoire et nos voisins au quotidien.